All right, today we're in section 7.7, simple and compound interest. There are three formulas you need to know in this section. The first one is simple interest, involving just interest, principal, rate, and time. The second one is simple interest when it involves finding the final balance, which we know is our A value. A stands for the final balance. The third formula is compound interest, and that's A equals P times 1 plus R to the power of T. All right, go ahead and write those three formulas down. All right, so those are my three formulas. In example 1, we're doing simple interest, I equals PRT, where we use the formula to find the interest, and then we use that information to find the final balance. So it says people buy bonds as a way to earn money. Okay, so anytime you're talking in terms of investment, whether it's bank accounts, the stock market, your retirement accounts, you make interest off of the amount that you're investing. That interest compounds over a period of time, and you essentially grow your money at a faster rate. Okay, so in this scenario, you have a $1,500 bond that earns 4% simple interest. How much will it earn after 2 years? One thing you have to remember, and you might want to write this down in your notes as a reminder, time always has to be in years. So if they give you the time in months, you have to convert that to years. For example, if I were to say 6 months, how much of a year is 6 months? Half a year. So that's what you would plug into the formula. Time always has to be in years. Okay, so in this example, we would start with I equals PRT, where I is the interest, P is the principal, R is the rate, and T is time. I'm trying to find how much it earns in interest. I don't know that. My principal amount is always the lump sum amount that I start with. So in this case, $1,500. Multiplied by 4% and 2 years. In principal times rate times time. But what do you always have to do to your rate before you can multiply? You've got to change it to a decimal, 0.04. Now in your calculators, multiply 1,500 times 0.04 times 2. You multiply all this together, you get $120. That's your first answer. That's how much you made in interest. Then you take that amount and you can add it back to the principal amount to find your total balance at the end. So there are two answers. This is just like the first 3 problems on your homework assignment tonight, where you will find the interest and then find your final balance. Okay, there will be 2 answers. And remember, A stands for the final balance, the principal plus the interest. Okay, any questions on that one? All right, so that's the most basic level of simple interest and something that you learned even in 7th grade math. Now this year we're going to build on that, and we're going to learn a couple more formulas. One of them, I'm actually going to work kind of backwards from the checkpoint, but this one is simple interest. You can see simple interest, but now there's something different. I'm given an A value. Well, if I'm given an A value, that means that I have total balance is involved. So I equals PRT is not going to work. You have to use your second formula. A equals P times 1 plus rate times time. And you want to put that in brackets because rate times time is multiplied first, then added to 1. Okay, so why do we use this one instead of I equals PRT? Because I'm given an A value and I have to have somewhere to plug that in. I need a formula that has A as a variable as a part of the formula. Okay? All right, so half the battle is going to be figuring out which formula you use. So once I figure out what formula to use, I now am going to plug in my values from the problem. I don't know A. I know that P is $1,000. What did we say that we have to do to our rate always before we can plug it in?
Make it a decimal.
Make it a decimal. Times 1 plus 0.025 times 2. Okay? And again, within this grouping, what do you have to do first? Within that grouping, what do you do first? You have to multiply first, and then you add. You're going to get the problem wrong if you add and then multiply. So what is 0.025 times 2? Not 50. 0.5. Okay? And now you have 1 plus 0.05. What's 1 plus 0.05?
1.05.
1.05, right? We don't need our calculators for that. You just add 1 to the other number. 1.05 times 1,000 gives me my final balance. I'm sorry. Yes, my final balance of 1,050. So let me ask you this. Now, the problem is not going to add, that's the answer to the problem. But we can use this information. So if A is 1,050, if A is 1,050 and my P was 1,000, how much money did I make in interest? I heard it. 50 bucks. If I start with $1,000 and I end up with 1,050, the only way that $50 comes into play is if that's the interest that I made over the life of my investment. Okay? So again, the hardest part is figuring out what formula to use. Go ahead and do the second one. Okay? It gives you A now and you have to solve for P. Okay, so now I still start with the same formula. Okay, A equals P times 1 plus RT. Now it's 1424.50 equals, I don't know P, times 1 plus the rate times the time. Okay. Wait, why did I write 0.5 in there for the time? Why did I write 0.5? Because it's 6 months and I have to write it as a year. Did you guys remember to do that, or did you write a 6? Okay, so it's half of a year, so that's why I write 0.5. Now I have to simplify what's in here. Okay, well there's no variables, so I can just multiply 0.035 times 0.5 and add it to 1. What's 0.035 times 0.5? What's it going to be?
1,000.
No, it's 0.0175, and I add that to 1. Okay? Now, is there another way that I could write this?
Yes.
How could I write it?
0.0175p.
Yep. You put the P after. Okay? So now, how do you solve for P? You divide both sides by 1.01575. And P equals, it doesn't seem like it could possibly be a whole number because of the long decimal, but it is. It's $1,400. So I'm going to ask you the same question that I asked you on the last question. How much did you make in interest?
$24.50.
Yeah.
So if you started with $1,400 and you ended with $1,424.50, the interest is $24.50. It's the difference. Okay? Again, not part of solving the problem, but that might be just a little bonus, like a bonus point or two on a quiz or a test, is to figure out what the interest is. Okay, so now I'm going to backtrack. All right, so we've solved so far for A, for P. Now, when I have to solve for R or T, either one, in this formula, it's going to involve the distributive property because I can't add a number and a variable together. All right, so you get a summer job. You save $1,400 of your pay, and deposit it into an account that earns simple annual interest. There's your key, simple annual interest. Okay? So that tells you it's one of two formulas. Now it says after 9 months, the balance. Okay? So balance means I cannot use I equals PRT. I can't use that. I've got to use my A formula. Find the annual interest rate. A equals P times 1 plus RT. All right, go ahead and plug in your numbers. This is your third one now, so you should be catching on, hopefully a little bit better. Okay, so you go A. What is your final balance? 1421 equals what was your initial, what was your starting amount? 1400 times 1 plus you don't know the rate times the time. Well, what value would you plug in for time? Do you plug in a 9?
No.
No, it's going to be 0. Yep, 0.75. It's going to be 0.75, right? Now, is there another way that I could write that? 0.75R. 0.75R. Okay? But, like we were saying, you cannot add these two things together. They're not like terms. Okay? So, what you have to do is what?
Distribute.
You're right. It is distributive. Now, this part is easy. Okay? 1400 times 1
1400.
is 1400. Okay? There's nothing difficult about that. It's 1400. Now, I have to do 1400 times 0.75, which is what?
1050.
1050R. Now I'm going to solve this like a two-step equation. What do I do? What do I do first?
Subtract
Subtract 1400. Very good. Subtract 1400 both sides. Now I get 21 equals 1050R. Now be careful. What am I going to divide both sides by?
1050.
Whatever is connected to my variable, which is 1050. I divide 21 divided by 1050. And what do I get?
How'd you get 1050?
I multiplied 1400 times 0.75. I distributed. I get 0.02, but is that a rate? Is that expressed as a rate? 2%. Okay? This is easily, and it's kind of weird to say it this way, but it's easily the most difficult part of this lesson. Solving for rate or time. Why? Because I have to do distributive property here because I can't combine like terms. All right? So you might even want to make a note to yourself. When I'm solving for rate or time, I have to distribute. Okay? And that will help you. Okay, so now example 3. Example 3 is something totally separate. It is what we call compound interest. I think you'll find that compound interest is a little easier than the last example we just did. The difficult part is remembering the formula. If you remember, if you can recognize which formula to use, which I will give you a bank for the formulas, but you're going to have to remember which one's which. Okay? A equals P times 1 plus R to the power of T. A is your final balance. How much is the principal in this problem? How much is your P? What is your P?
1500.
Your P is 1500 times 1 plus what is your rate? What do you have to do to it?
Change it to a decimal. Which would be 0.
Which would be 0.04.
0.024. Yep, you have to move your decimal to the left 2 places. And what would I raise it to?
0.5.
The power of what?
T.
6 years. Your time is already in years, so you can leave it a 6. Now, plug this into your calculator. 1500, the whole thing. 1500 parentheses 1 plus 0.024. End your parentheses. And do y'all know where the exponent button is?
Yeah.
It's the X with a shaded in square.
Yes.
Hit a 6 and hit equals. Okay?
What?
Now, that's not going to be, and a lot of times on compound interest, it's not going to be an even answer. So here's what the instructions will say. It will say to round to the nearest cent, to round to the nearest penny. So what did you get?
$1,729.38.
38 cents. Okay? If you understand that, that's everything you need to know for the last section of chapter 7, section 7.7.